Hi there, friends. It's Dr. Bill with Common Sense Math. This is going to be a seventh grade problem about linear equations. And there's two main things that you'll have to know as a prerequisite, a foundation for being able to solve this problem that was modeled after another one, just like the sixth grade one we did in the last video, that only had 12% of the kids get correct. So apparently, kids aren't remembering the formulas. So I suggest that you think of this concept because they don't have the endurance for all of the checking of their data on their own. Do one as a class to get the right X and the Y, my suggestion, using the rise over run, because as long as you know at least two Y and two X numbers, then you can do the rise over run where it's y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub, sorry, x sub 2 minus, sorry, y sub 2 minus y sub, I'm tired. It's like 2 in the morning when I'm doing this video for you guys. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That'll give you the slope, the rise over the run, so that you can then plug in, hopefully, the um, trying to figure out x and y. Um, and they have to understand that when you do the other formula, the y is equal to the mx plus b, the m being the rise over the run, the slope, times the x that will be able to have, and then the b being the where it intersects the y-axis. One thing that your kids can remember, that if the x happens to be 0, that it doesn't go anywhere left or right, that it's right there at 0, then the y-intercept is however many above or below. And so that's one shortcut that your students can use. It's going to be easier to show you than tell you. So let me show you. And I want you to notice that because I determined that a problem like this in January, you know, did 12% in April, I would suggest that you think of the concept of doing things in this format for now, that do step 1 as a class, do step 2 in a group, step 3 with a partner, and step 4, they can try it on their own. And you'll probably have to decide as a teacher which kids are not ready for solo, where they can be with a partner still, while the rest of the kids can be working solo. So I would recommend that you use 4 different colors, so that after you figure out the rise over the run, to be able to get the slope, and then test it by plugging in each of the x's and the y uh, data that they give you for this linear equation, that one of them can be done, for example, like you'll do the rise over the run as a class, and I basically did it using the first two, what I labeled A and B. And what you can say is, okay, we're going to do the rise over run as a class. We'll we'll do Y as a class. Sorry, we'll do uh, the XY coordinates for A as a class. We'll do the XY coordinates for B in groups at the XY coordinates for C with a partner, and then they can try D on their own. And that way they can build to working independently. And I think that's something that I've done in the past that seemed to work. And then once again, because it was sort of like an open-ended grid response, you can't really tell here, but because I'm on paper, the drag and then the drop, I used black for uh, the slope, and I used uh, this is the y equals mx plus b. If your kids will recognize that, the this is the slope, and the other number represents where it intercepts the y-axis. So it's disappointing that a lot of students, unless they can use their calculator, they don't remember that that B is simply where the uh, line crosses the y-axis. So let's make sure that we get that in their heads as soon as possible. Okay. All right. So understanding that rise over run is y2 minus y1, then as a class, you'll take the first one, A and B, -4 here, minus a -2, minus -2, over x2 minus x1, 0, minus a -5, and you get a -4 minus a -2, two negatives equal a positive, so -4 plus 2 is -2. And again, two negatives equals a positive. 0 plus 5 is equal to 5. So our rise over run is for every two positions we move down in terms of y, we move forward 5 units to the right on the X. All right. So then to plug that back in, I want you to notice that I colored purple, then orange, then blue, then green. So again, class would be purple, group can be orange, partner can be blue, and solo can be green. All right. It's just, I don't think that the students would have the endurance or the patience to check all of these to make sure. Okay. So plugging in that we know that -2/5 is the slope. Well, if what I told you earlier, we can assume, because we see that one of them has x as 0. So remember that I did that, you have x as 0. Well, 0 on x means that all you're going to do is either move up or down on the y-axis. And so if it's giving you that free information, then you don't need to do a lot of extra work. Then you can just plug in 1, 2, 3, 4, -4, because it already tells you what that relationship is between those two. So our second digit is going to be the -4. So then we plug that in as a class. It's y equals -2/5 times the x minus the 4, which is the y-intercept. So let's see how that turns out. As a class, we would do -2 times the -5, a +10 divided by 5, minus 4 would be 2 minus 4, and -2. So then we check our x as a class correct, -5, and y -2. Right? Then in groups, they can try to plug in the second one. Same y equals mx plus b, y equals our -2/5, our rise over run. Plug in our group data, a 0 for x minus the y-intercept. Y equals anything times 0 is 0, so y equals 0 minus 4. Y equals a -4. Let's double check. When x is 0, orange, ry is -4. It worked. Then when you get to the partner level, hopefully with kids who can get along and work together, same slope, y equals mx plus b, -2/5, rise over run. Our new data for our partners are x being a 5, minus the y-intercept is -10 over 5, -10/5 minus 4. 5 into -10 is -2 minus 4, with the y in this case being 6. So again, you can check your blue data. If x is 5, then y should be -6. Let's see if that's what we get. X is 5, y is -6. And then hopefully, if you feel enough kids are getting it, then let them work solo. If you feel they're not, then you stay in partners, okay? Sometimes some of this goes so hard, you might stay in groups a little bit longer and practice it with some other problems as well. So I think that the hardest part might be that they would have to remember the rise over run formula and the y equals mx plus b to be able to figure out the relationship, the linear equation that's going to work out here, to make sure, and we just check all 4 to make sure. So the green, when you did it solo, if we plug it in, -2 times 10 is -20 divided by 5 would be a -4, minus our 4, which is our y-intercept. Y would be, in this case, a -4. So when we check our green solo data, we're going to be able to get solo at that point. 10 for x, y is -8, 10 for x, y -8. So that's how I might suggest that you do it, because it's just too overwhelming. And the kids, like I said, if they did that poorly in April, they'll do even worse than that in January on a problem like this. So that's something that I suggest you should try with your kids, see how it goes. And again, we live in a colorful world, and then it becomes black and white when we get into class and start using the worksheet. So I highly suggest that, just like I have here, that you have this bag full of markers, and you already check out all the ones that we were using. So that's all that's left. Scissors sometimes for cutting, to do certain math problems, and If you have a different way or a better way, always feel free, confident to share a different way because when you notice all the rationale for math problems, they always say a different approach could have been used to solve these problems. So I just try to pick something that's the easiest, or to break it down, like I said, let's do it class, group, partner, solo. And you notice those are in alphabetical order: class, then group, then partner, then solo. When you're practicing a skill that's the same, uh, guess and check, if you want to call it testing, um, 4 different times. So we'll see you next. I'll be working on our 8th and our 9th grade practice tests, surgery. Um, the reason I focused more on 3rd through 7th was because the majority of you teach 3rd through 7th that I have in the math, the common sense, countdown to math, the in-person training. So appreciate your patience. Those of you who teach 8th grade, that was a readiness standard, meaning that the students had to learn that in 7th. So it would be a supporting standard for you guys. So you can practice that problem with your students, like I mentioned, and any of the other ones, because like I said, math did so poorly in so many questions. You could probably practice all of them and you'll do well by your students to go over a lot of these with your kids. So you guys take care and have a great rest of your day whenever you're watching.